Hey everyone, this is Pallavi, and today we are diving into the 31st game of the book, The Most Instructive Games of Chess Ever Played by Irving Chernev. This game was played between Botvinnik and Boleslavsky in Moscow in 1941, and the topic of the game is elegant simplification. This is one of Botvinnik's greatest games, famous for its original opening strategy and brilliant middle game combinations. But the real masterpiece is in the ending. A crystal clear rook and pawn endgame that every student should study. So without further ado, let's begin. So I started with e4, a6, the French defense. d4, d5, knight d2. Now this is the modern fashionable move. It avoids with the pin with bishop b4 and keeps the c pawn free to support the d pawn. Now black played c5. E takes d5, e takes d5. If instead queen takes d5, the knight gf3, c takes d4, bishop c4 attacking the queen, queen to d8 and the knight b3, now attacking the d4 pawn. Knight f6 and white castles on the king side. Now white gains quick development and the initiative. So black captured with e takes d5, bishop b5 check, knight c6, knight f3, developing towards the center. Knight gf3, not the d1. Bishop to d6 and then castle on the king side. Knight e7, which is supporting the knight on c6. D takes e5, bishop takes e5, knight b3 attacking the bishop, and bishop to b6. Bishop e3, developing. Bishop takes e3, bishop takes c6, check on the king. Now black captured, b takes c6. If instead knight takes c6, then rook e1 pinning the bishop, and then d4. Knight f takes d4 and white wins a pawn. So after b takes c6, f takes e3. In return for the isolated pawn, white gains strong pressure on the d4 and c5 squares, a strategic advantage that will prove important later. Black castled on the king side, queen to d2, queen b6, queen c3. This is the key to Botvinnik's subtle positional play. Black must not be allowed to break free with c5. At the same time, Botvinnik aims to anchor his knights on d4 and c5, powerful outposts that can't be chased away by pawns. Now, after queen c3, black played rook to b8. Rook b8 temporarily prevents knight to c5. The reply to which would be queen takes b2. Rook a b1 protects the b pawn and renews the threat of planting the knight at c5. Rook e8, rook f e1, knight g6. Black's goal is to plant the knight firmly in the center where it can help neutralize white's pressure. Knight c5, bishop to g4, knight d4, and now black played knight e5. Now white played b4. White is now firmly established on the dark squares, but that alone isn't enough to win. He must find a way to open lines for his rooks without giving black too much counterplay. Rook b d8, e4, d takes e4, rook takes e4, a5, a3, a takes b4, and then a takes b4. Now black played f6. This move reinforces the knight and prevents queen g3, stopping any threats against the loose pieces. Rook b e1. Black played king h8. Black misses his chance. He could have consolidated with bishop to h5, then adding protection to the rook, followed by bishop f7, keeping the e6 square out of white's control. But here now white played king to h1. After this, black has several ways to go wrong. If rook d5, then rook takes g4, wins a piece. If bishop to c8, white wins a pawn after knight a4, queen a6, queen takes c6, queen takes c6, and then knight takes c6. It's winning for white. Even the recommended bishop h5 fades. How? Knight d e6, rook b8, rook takes e5, f takes e5, queen takes e5, threatening checkmate on g7, rook takes e6, and then knight takes e6, and black must give up his bishop to prevent checkmate. So after king h1, black played bishop d7. Knight takes d7, rook takes d7, and now queen takes c6. This wins a pawn exploiting the weak back rank, and it launches a beautiful combination. Black played queen d8. Of course, knight takes c6 doesn't work because of rook takes e8 and it's a checkmate. So queen d8, and now white played knight f3, rook c7. After this natural looking move, Botvinnik unleashes a stunning combination. The pieces disappear almost like magic, and the game simplifies into a rook and pawn ending with Botvinnik a pawn up. So here, now white played a good move, which is knight takes e5. And then black played f takes e5. If rook takes c6, then knight f7 check, king g8, knight takes d8, rook takes d8, and then c4, f5, rook f4, and it's totally winning for white. And after knight takes e5, if rook takes e5, then rook takes e5, queen f takes e5, and queen e4, it's winning for white. And if rook takes c6, then rook e8 check, it's winning. So after knight takes e5, f takes e5, now white played queen takes e8 check, queen takes e8, rook takes e5, now queen g8. Remarkably, there was no way for black to avoid giving up his queen for a rook. Rook e8, rook takes c2, rook takes queen on g8 check, king takes g8, and then rook b1. The rook belongs behind the passed pawn. It not only supports the pawn, it its power grows with every step the pawn advances. Then black played king f7, b5, king e6, b6. The passed pawn ties down black's king and rook. Meanwhile, white activates his king, prepared to attack the weakened pawns on the king side. Rook c8, h3. Now, Botvinnik shows that b7 would be immature. Why? Because if then rook b8, king g1, king d6, king f2, king c7, king g3, rook takes b7, rook takes b7, check, king takes b7, king f4, king c6, king e5, king d7, and white's advantage is gone. So white played h3. Rook to b8, king h2, king d5, king g3, king c6, king g4, king b7. Black blockades the pawn with his king, freeing the rook for counterplay. Capturing the pawn would be disastrous because rook takes b6 check, king takes b6, king f5, and the king invades, picking off the pawns. So black played king b7, rook e1. The rook swings to the e5, becoming more active while still guarding the pawn. White now threatens rook e7 check, king takes, and then rook takes g7, and the helpless h-pawn falls next. Black played rook g8. Because if king takes b6, then rook b1 check, followed by exchanging of rooks. So after rook g8, rook e6, supporting. From this rank, the rook both defends the passed pawn and supports the attack on black's kingside pawns. Black's king and rook, meanwhile, are cut off from each other, tied down to pure defense. King a6. Black defends as best as he can. If h6, then king h5, followed by king g6, breaks through. If g6, then king g5 and king h6 does the same. So king a6, now white played king g5, king b7, h4, king a6, h5, king b7, g4, king a6, king h4, king b7, h6. This will break up the pawns. G takes h6. If g6, then rook e7 check, king takes b6, rook takes h7, king c5, rook g7, attacking the rook, rook h8, rook takes g6, winning for white. So here, black played g takes h6, rook takes h6, rook g7, supporting h7, king h5, now black played king a6. If rook f7, then rook e6, rook g7, g5, king a6, king h6, rook d7, and then rook e8. King takes b6, rook h8, and white wins. So after king a6 here, white played a good move, rook c6. Then black played rook e7. If king b7, then rook c7 check, rook takes c7, b takes c7, king takes c7, king h6, white wins easily. Black's king is simply too far away to help. So black played rook e7 and then rook c7, rook e5 check, g5 blocking it, king takes b6, rook takes h7, king c6, king h6, king d6, g6, rook e1, rook f7. And then black played king e6, rook f2. The king is completely cut off and cannot approach the passed pawn. Rook a1. Now white pushed to g7. Rook h1 check, king g6, rook g1 check, king h7, rook h1 check, king g8, king e7, and now white played rook e2 check, king d7. If king f6, then king f8 followed by pawn promotion. So king f8, now white played rook e4, discovered by Luis Ramirez de Lucena in 1497. This classic winning technique is still just as powerful today. Rook to h2, king f7, and now black resigned. The win goes like this. For example, if here rook goes to f2 check, king g6, rook g2 check, king f6, rook f2 check, king g5, rook g2 check, and rook g4, and the pawn cannot be stopped from queening. So this was the game. Let's look at the key lessons learned from this game. Number 1, control important squares. Strong squares like outposts for your knights can be more important than having perfect pawn structure. Number 2, stop your opponent's plan. Before attacking, make sure your opponent cannot break free. Number 3, win ahead, trade pieces. If you are winning, simplify into an endgame you understand. Number 4, rook behind the passed pawn. Always try to put your rook behind your passed pawn. It supports the pawn and becomes stronger as it moves forward. Number 5, activate your king. In endgames, your king is a powerful piece. Bring it toward the center and into the action. And number 6, learn basic winning positions. The final win used a famous technique first shown by Luis Ramirez de Lucena, and players still use it today. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something from this game as well. Please don't forget to subscribe my channel, give a like, comment, share. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.